Hey, stranger.
In the night.
Welcome back to Trashy Divorces.
Shooby-dooby-doo. Welcome back, y'all. Hey, I'm Alicia.
I am Stacie.
This week, we're bringing our trashy divorces together under the song Strangers in the Night, made famous by old Blue Eyes himself, Frank Sinatra, in 1966.
Yep, it won him 2 Grammys in 67, although he hates the song and calls it a piece of shit and the worst song that he's ever heard. But it was also his first #1 hit in 11 years, so perhaps shut it, Frank.
Simmer down,
Simmer
man.
down.
For real, right? What brings our 2 stories together this week? We are covering 2 nighttime soap opera diva stars. Stacie, you're bringing us the trashy divorce of
Jane Wyman and a little-known political figure named Ronald Reagan.
It was a great story.
Yeah. But you've got you've got an expansive, loving story of a cool person.
Goddess and diva, 4-time married Diahann Carroll, trailblazing.
But unlucky in love.
Yeah, so unlucky in love. Hey, before we kick it off, let's give some thanks and praise to our Patreon people. God, we had y'all.
Yep.
So
another big list of new supporters, and we are so happy to welcome you.
Amazing. All the trashy love and thanks. Stacie, kick us off.
Sure. Aranetta, Dana, Dagmar S., Kirsten L., Lorian L., Melissa M., Misha H., Delaney, Jessica D.,
Michelle M., Gage, Shauna K., Bridget C., Monica L., Casey F., Lex, Tanya K., Ashley, Lauren H., Heather A. Holy cats.
Thank you so
Y'all
much.
Y'all are amazing. Welcome to Team Trash Candy. We also have a few more super supporters this week.
We sure do.
Y'all are amazing.
All right. Thank you so much to Antonia R., Amber W., Natalie H., and Jordan P.
Y'all, just huge love and just overwhelming piles and piles of trash candy to our Patreon people.
Yeah, we hope that you are enjoying the stuff we post over there as much as we enjoy making the stuff we post over there, because we really, really do. So, Alicia, what did we do this week?
Oh my gosh. We had an Ask Alicia About the Stars episode. Oh, a profile on Carmen Miranda.
Yep. Trashy
Tutors covered the executions of Henry VIII's 5th queen, Catherine Howard and Jane Boleyn. Oh, hell. Our deep dive into Judith Campbell Exner took 2 episodes this week. That's how trashy it was.
Yep. So when you have a need for more trash candy, that's where you find it.
Yeah, check us out, patreon.com/trashydivorces. We got you, boo.
Yeah, let's take some odds on the cats behaving for this recording session.
What are the chances that we'll be sharing love with our cats before this episode is through? It's a good question.
Shooby-dooby-doo.
Shooby-dooby-doo. Let's go, 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 go. Start the episode.
Cue music.
Shooby-dooby-doo. You have the trashy divorce of Jane and Ronnie Pooh.
Oh, yeah.
Ha.
Yeah.
Hey, Stacie.
Hey, Alicia.
Yeah, Jane and Ronnie Pooh. Let's do this.
Yeah. Jane Wyman, Ronald Reagan. Reagan being our first divorced president because of this marriage.
This one's been on the spreadsheet for a long time. I'm excited.
They were
that
Hollywood
you
hot
this.
stuff.
Hollywood hot stuff.
Once upon a time. All right. We've touched on Reagan as an important figure in Frank Sinatra's later life, but these two had been kicking around Hollywood since the 40s. They're very close in age. They're basically peers. So they've known each other for years. When Reagan gets into politics in the 60s, and even though Sinatra was a lifelong Democrat at that point, he supported his Republican friend's gubernatorial re-election campaign in 70. 72, Sinatra endorses Nixon, and he never looks back from his embrace of Republican politics.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan himself had not always been a Republican, although somewhat quixotically, his first wife, Jane Wyman, was a Republican.
Really?
And their divorce happened in part because of their differing political views, although it seems like there was the particular political milieu that they were jammed into was really wildly different than what you might expect. So
interesting. Tell me more.
All right. Well, I just want to point out that, the next time somebody pines for the old days when politics didn't tear us apart, it did. It always has. Always has.
Always has, always will.
There was more happening with Jane and Ronnie, but whatever. All right, so we're going to talk about Jane Wyman, star of stage and screen, and Ronald Reagan, B-movie powerhouse, who parlayed his faltering film career into leadership of the Screen Actors Guild, and then into the California governor's mansion, and then into the White House.
It's quite a trajectory.
Boom, 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 boom. It was kind of this was an interesting read for me because I grew up in a strongly Reagan-loving household, and I remember, 84, I would have been 8. I remember being so excited when he was reelected by such a massive margin in 84. Anyway. Everyone is allowed to grimace with me at that recollection.
Back in the days when you were a Republican. When
I was 8. Yeah, I grow a lot of things in life. Okay. Ronald Reagan was born on February 6th, 1911. He's an Aquarius. In the small town of Tampico, Illinois, which I've probably mispronounced there. Tampico, I don't know. His family moved around quite a bit when he was young, but by the time he was 10 or so, they had settled into the slightly larger town of Dixon, Illinois. And he and his older brother did normal kid things. They went to school, they went to church, and as a teenager, Ronnie worked as a lifeguard. He rescued 77 people during his time as a lifeguard.
Holy cats! That is some...
Yep.
Who in your town is teaching swimming lessons because they're failing?
So I also was wondering if he might just be overreacting to everything. We're going to come to this later on, but yeah, 77 rescues seems like a lot.
Like my mom lifeguarded in her summers growing up, like late 60s, early 70s. All my uncles did too. I think between them, they maybe rescued 2 kids out of 12 summers of, collectively lifeguarding at pools.
Well, strap a Superman.
How big is Dixon, Illinois?
It's not big, and it was not big then.
Everyone went to the pool that day and drowned in the town.
Tried to. Anyway, 77 rescues by
that is remarkable,
Superman Ronnie Reagan, who, again, I just assume he was overreacting.
The kid was 7 and he saved 1 kid, and now he's just bragging about it. I saved 77 people. Yeah. From the depths of the Dixon, Illinois pool.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. So he goes to college, Eureka College in Illinois. Pretty indifferent student, but he was definitely into sports, theater, and politics. 1931-32, he gets himself elected student body president.
Sure he does.
And he... Again, 1931 or 2, he goes to war against the president of his college. There are demonstrations on campus. He is protesting with his fellow students. He is like...
In it.
I know. This guy ended up being Ronald Reagan. Just think about that. Okay. He also was furiously pissed off by racism as a young man, which is a little ironic given his later full-body embrace of Barry Goldwater, whose 1964 White House bid is generally viewed as the moment that African Americans left the GOP forever.
Yeah.
We'll have more on that on Patreon in the next couple of weeks. So, so-so student who certainly loves sort of public speaking type stuff, graduates and is like, hey...
But he's Superman.
He will save you if you are near water. So he thinks like, wow, radio is going to be a good spot for me because I love public speaking things.
Okay.
So he ends up being the announcer for the Chicago Cubs baseball team.
No way. The Cubbies?
Station in Des Moines, Iowa. But this, he has to travel with the team to commentate for the radio station. So this is how he gets to California in 1937. There are terrible storms, so the games and his normal reporting duties are fully interrupted. So he looks up an old friend from the Iowa radio station who went to Hollywood a few years before, and things are going really well for her. She's singing at some big hotel, A+. They have dinner, and he tells her how desperately he would like to be in the movies. And she's like, oh, well, you're not going to be able to wear your glasses, but let me call my friend. And so she calls an agent who sits down with him. He shows up to the meeting with the agent without glasses, and his vision was apparently terrible.
Oh, no.
So he can't see, like, he doesn't know what this guy looks like.
The question is, how did he see the 77 people drowning if his vision's that bad?
Glasses are out.
So they're like, of course we can make you a movie star.
Yeah, the agent likes him. Anyway, he ends up at Warner Brothers a couple days later, screen tests, and then he's got to jump a train back to Des Moines because he's got to go commentate the Cubs baseball game. And they're like, I'm sorry, you're leaving? But it'll take us a little while to get through this. And he's like, I'm sorry, I have a job. And so he leaves. And a couple days later, he gets a telegram that Warner Brothers would like to hire him on a 7-year contract, $200 a week.
What?
So, yeah, Ronnie Reagan heads back to California.
To become an actor.
Is immediately assigned to the B film unit, home of almost quality programming. But he picks up his first starring role in 1937. Like, this is how quick all of this happened.
So you just had to get to California and you could be a movie star?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You could pretty much walk in off the streets and...
Cool. If you were good looking, you could say if words weren't too hard. You looked okay?
Yep.
Let's make that kid a star.
Ronnie would later joke that at the B unit, the producers, quote, didn't want them good, they wanted them Thursday. So it's basically...
Good, fast, cheap, pick two.
Right. I mean, I think today, like, we joke about, like, porn stars are in 600 movies in 6 months or whatever. Ronald Reagan, in less than 24 months, was in 19 different films.
What?
Mm-hmm. One of those, 1938's Brother Rat, paired him with the actress Jane Wyman. And so for a minute, we're going to leave Ronnie Reagan at the Trashy Divorces Depot.
Because they're meeting in a movie called Brother Rat?
Brother Rat. There was a sequel, too, in 39.
What was that? Sister Rat?
Sister of Brother Rat? I don't know.
Oh, my God.
I forget. I started to write it down, but this is where they met and fell in love.
Okay, I'm going to be real honest with you. Going into the story, I had super low expectations.
Brother Rat.
But all of that was amazing. Okay, tell me about Jane Wyman. This is great.
Okay. Jane Wyman was born Sarah Jane Mayfield on January 5th, 1917. She's Cap.
Okay.
She would be cagey about her age all her life, and this comes up just a lot. She's just cagey. She got her first radio gig at the age of 13, and so she had to lie about her age at that point in order to work. And then when she went to Hollywood, like, she just was sort of consistently fudging numbers to fit whatever was needed of her.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
At that time. So anyway, she was born in St. Joseph, Missouri in 1917 to parents who were themselves in their early 20s, which obviously is pretty normal. But when she was 4, her mother filed for divorce.
Oh.
And the next year, I don't think the divorce was ever finalized. I think her mother actually nursed her father through because he died suddenly. She's 5. He's 27.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. So after Dad dies, Mom leaves. She heads to Cleveland, Ohio to get a fresh start or something and leaves little Sarah Jane.
Takes off without the baby.
Yeah, leaves her with foster parents. She was an only child, and so suddenly she is living with a foster dad who's the chief of detectives for St. Joseph. And so, here's the setup. You've got parents' marital strife, dad's death, mom's abandonment, and then a strict upbringing. The chief of detectives here kicks it not too long after. Like, her childhood is brutal.
This is traumatic. It's horrible.
Yeah. So this is a person who, like so many of our subjects, is definitely not set up for success when it comes to healthy relationships as an adult. All right. 1932. The same year that Ronnie is graduating from college, Jane drops out of high school at the age of 15 and heads to Hollywood.
I mean, because they'll just make you a star there.
She's going to lie about her age.
Perfect.
I mean, this is what happens. She got bit parts for a few years. She worked as a manicurist. She was a switchboard operator. I think she did some showgirl stuff or chorus line stuff.
Getting by.
1936, her luck turns around. Warner Brothers signs her to a contract for $60 a week.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Same studio?
Mm-hmm.
She's making 1/3 of the amount that he's making at $200.
Same B unit.
Wow.
Yep. Same B film unit. Yeah. So she gets right to work on their B movies. $60 a week. She had her sights set on being a comedic actress and singer and had no intention of ever taking on dramatic roles. I think she just enjoyed being in comedies. Like, I think that was just Jane Wyman. My takeaway from this is she is someone who just always did the things that felt good for her to do and never budged on that. Like, that's super commendable. Yeah. Okay. There you
go.
Just
welcome to getting to know and love your Capricorn.
Yeah, just a super commendable sense of like, no, these are the things that bring me joy, and these are the things I shall do, period.
Yep, that's a Cap.
All of that other stuff, don't care. Okay, so she is in dozens of like high energy comedy films and just delivers these great performances, but gradually, she's in Hollywood. She gets some experience, sees how things work, sees what like lands in the market, and she kind of starts to want more for herself, more out of her career.
More than $60 a week when the male is around you are getting paid 3 times as much.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Okay. So also worth noting, in 1933, Jane marries for the first time to Ernest Eugene Wyman. She lists herself as 19 on the marriage certificate because she has always been cagey about her age.
How old is she really?
16.
Oh my God.
And Eugene, as he was known, was 11 years older, age 27 when they married. This marriage, okay, again, there's a lot of caginess here. The details on her first 2 marriages are not, she just never opened up about them.
No, she's pretty tight-lipped.
She's super tight-lipped. So there's just a lot of, we know when this guy's dad died because the studio put out a press release, but it said that it was her dad who had died. Like, it's very interesting. It's very strange. Anyway, so she and Eugene were married probably for 2 years, but there are some other accounts that say their relationship lasted just a month. So
okay,
I don't know, but it was short.
So not long-term at all.
Not long-term at all. By the time she hit the set for Brother Rat in 1938, where she would meet hubby number 3.
Unbelievable.
She had already divorced Eugene and was married to a New Orleans dress manufacturer named Myron Futterman. Sounds fun.
He's Futterman. The life of the party. Hey, is Futterman coming? Well, he probably is.
No one knows, because basically, like, if you're her ex-husband, except for Ronald Reagan, like, you disappear into the mists of time after she's done with you. It's
Fudd brings the fun.
Yeah, Futterman. Futterman's Fashions. For all your fashion needs.
Unbelievable.
Canal Street, New Orleans.
Okay, so she's married when she meets old Ronnie Pooh. Mm-hmm. Strangers in Brother Rat.
Ooh, okay. Ronnie. So these two might have been the B unit, but they were A+ in the Sparks department. Yeah, I wrote that.
You're so corny. Hey, Dad.
Yeah. Okay, so Jane's second divorce was granted on December 5th, 1938, and Jane Wyman and Ronald Reagan were married on January 26th, 1940, just over a year later. Everything is coming up roses for both of them. Jane had been developing an interest in taking on meatier roles, and the following year, Ron landed himself the role of a lifetime. In the movie King's Row, he played a double amputee in a performance that was very well received by audiences and critics. And apparently the catchphrase from that movie was, "Where's the rest of me?" I'm going from memory there. No, that was like the name of his autobiography when he ran for governor. Like, he put out a memoir. Like, classic, like, I gotta publish a book because I'm gonna run for office. And so,
sure.
Yeah, so he used his catchphrase from his Hollywood days.
Where's the rest of me?
Where's the rest of me?
Perfect.
Okay.
This story just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah. Okay. So also in 1941, Ron and Jane had their first bebe, Maureen. They would adopt baby Michael in 1945. Apparently Maureen's delivery was really, there were a lot of complications, and so they weren't sure that Jane could actually carry a baby to term in the future. So they adopted Michael in 1945, and then Jane does become pregnant later. Their third child, Christine, was born prematurely and only lived 1 day.
Oh, that's tragic.
It's really tragic. 1947, and this definitely contributed to the breakup of their marriage.
It often, sadly, it often does. It's a tough thing to endure.
Yeah, and I guess Ronnie had pneumonia at the time, so like he was hospitalized elsewhere, and so Jane actually went through this alone. Like he was not with her when she gave birth prematurely, and then their child died. Yeah. So anyway, tough, right?
Yeah, super tough.
So, sorry, that was all sort of moving forward in time, but sort of sets the stage. Okay, so Warner Brothers, the studio, sees what's up with Ronnie's Kings Row thing, and they're like the it couple. So they bump his salary to $3,000 a week. They do, yep. And the studio is presenting Ronnie and Jane as the picture-perfect Hollywood couple. Papers are routinely running studio-crafted stories and photographs about this idealized domestic bliss that they're living in. Roses, I say.
Roses.
Coming up.
Days of wine and roses.
Yeah.
What happens now?
What do you think happens now in the early 1940s?
Well, you said 1940, so Ronnie's going to war.
Yeah, sort of. Well, luckily, he's got terrible eyesight, right?
Oh, I forgot.
So,
but have you heard about his heroic Superman life-saving skills?
I mean, square that circle, people. I don't know. Okay, so yeah, World War II interrupts Ronald Reagan's meteoric rise in Hollywood. Because apparently after his big hit, like that would have been viewed as his breakout role, and like he would have gone on to perform many more rescues or something. I don't know.
But wait, the army still takes him because he's blind?
Yeah, they send him. He shows up to be inducted into the army in San Francisco in 1942. Then they reassign him down to Culver City, California, which is L.A.
Right.
The L.A. area, to make training films, basically. So his unit was responsible for...
This is a very hard assignment for the war.
I mean, as it goes, but he makes 400 training videos for the Air Force, including training videos on how to pilot the B-52s that were used by the crews that dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Like, this actually was sort of a big deal.
But he doesn't serve in a foreign land. He's not a gunslinger.
No, I think for much of America, California feels like a foreign land. I do not feel that way. I think California is awesome, but no.
Okay, so he serves in an auxiliary capacity.
Yes.
Okay.
He gets to keep his glasses on. He is not dodging mortar fire.
Well, it would be hard to make the movies about plane flying if you can't see what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me share this, though, because he really, like, he was not just goofing off during his, like, he was really into the fight against fascism. He was really... like beating Nazis was something he took very seriously. He really, like, he took
as should we all.
He took his part in the war effort very seriously. And he actually reviewed, as footage came in from the liberation of camps in Europe, he was the one who reviewed those. He was very moved. He made his kids watch those when they were 14.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So one thing, this is on his Wikipedia page, he comes into possession of a reel of film of the liberation of Auschwitz, and he kept it. And this is like what he had his sons watch at 14, so they would know. I don't know. But he did believe that one day, like, Holocaust denialism would become a thing, because it's just too
really
horrific to accept. So yeah, that's why he kept that video and made sure other people saw it. It took far less time for Holocaust denialism to start than he probably hoped. Anyway, while Ronald Reagan is in Culver City making training videos for the Air Force and, I don't know, stealing government footage of Camp Liberation. I mean, for good reason. I don't know, whatever. That was a thing. Okay. Jane was taking her career into the fast lane in Hollywood. So she's starring with Olivia de Havilland, Jimmy Durante, Jack Carson, Betty Grable. In 1945, Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett produced The Lost Weekend. This was her breakout performance, which meant that her star was very much on the rise just as her husband was coming home from the war. to find that his King's Row success from 42 didn't count for anything in Hollywood in the post-war environment.
It's a whole new scene, man.
And everyone is coming home.
Yeah.
People who had never been in Hollywood before they got shipped off to Paris are coming home. Like, yeah, different everything. So as his roles dried up, he decides that he's going to run for office with the Screen Actors Guild, the union for actors. He became the third vice president that year, and then there was a change in bylaws the following year that basically took out the president and most of the board. So he runs in a special election and is elected SAG president in 1947 and was subsequently reelected 6 times between 47 and 59.
Holy cats. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Little change in rules. All right.
It's a good gig.
Yeah. I mean, he certainly did a lot with it. Let's put it that way. Not all good, as we're about to see. Sadly, this was during the hysteria of the Red Scare, and Senator Joseph McCarthy, Republican of Wisconsin, was just destroying the country as much as he could possibly manage.
Talk about a brother rat.
Yeah. So as president of SAG, Ronnie, who he did have a deep personal hatred for communism of his own accord. I think this ties to the fact that his father had been Catholic, and growing up in the Midwest in, the 20s, basically, the Klan was a big factor in politics of the day.
For sure.
And the Klan is, to this day, I think, vociferously anti-Catholic. So his dad hated the Klan. And my guess is that Ronnie, in looking at the world, he saw communism in much the same terms as the Klan.
Makes sense.
That is my guess. So, Ronnie's head of SAG, McCarthyism is in full flower, the Red Scare is on, and Dude Bro names to the FBI and to the House Un-American Activities Committee of people he thinks might be communists or communist sympathizers, and is sort of supportive of the blacklist. Like, yeah,
well, all right.
Yeah, he and Jane both. I think this was part of their. I don't think she was. It sounds like he was not 100% comfortable with all of this, but his goal, I think he bought into McCarthy's hysteria, and I think he saw himself as saving Hollywood from an impending government crackdown because of all the communists that I think largely he was imagining. Anyway, so he was gonna be...
He really does have a hero fixation, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was gonna rescue Hollywood.
From communism. Single-handedly.
From Soviet expansionism.
Like he rescued the Dixon, Illinois pool.
77 rescues, come on.
Let's do this.
Most of those kids weren't even drowning.
That is some, yeah.
He had a code name from the FBI. He was an
really?
informant for the FBI in the 40s.
Fantastic.
His code name was T10.
Hey.
And this didn't come out until the mid 80s. He'd been president for several years when this came out.
Wow.
Yeah, these small government guys, you gotta watch them, because in private, that's not what they think.
At all.
I mean, you look at their private behavior, they're not small government types at all. Okay, so Ronald Reagan had a quirk that I can't really speak to the truth of. So basically, he is this powerful union guy in Hollywood, which inevitably gets him into high-profile scrapes with other powerful union guys in Hollywood. And the way that his biographers put it, and like people who are reporting on this kind of put it, is that, like, quote, Reagan suspected so-and-so was a communist or a communist sympathizer or whatever. Like, Reagan suspected his mortal enemy in this dispute was a communist.
All it takes is a whisper.
Yeah. So then, when there would be a high-profile dust-up and people were saying mean things about Ronnie Reagan, who, opposed a labor action or something, Ronnie Reagan convinces himself that, so this is what the communists do. They say mean things about you in public. Like, he just thought he was like a victim of communist infiltration in Hollywood. So he recalled a mid-1940s strike that did turn violent. I mean, like, I'm not saying everything was awesome and whatever. Like, this strike clearly got out of control. And he later said, quote, "Now I knew from firsthand experience how communists used lies, deceit, and violence to advance the cause of Soviet expansionism."
My word.
So one other interesting quirk is that the American...
I actually thought you were going to tell me like a kinky sex quirk. So this went somewhere very different.
Yeah. So that strike that Ronald Reagan opposed that showed him the true face of communism?
Right.
Okay. The American Communist Party also opposed that strike. And the mortal enemy who led it, there were whispers that he was a communist sympathizer, but I guess like in a later hearing either with HUAC or California's version of HUAC,
okay,
just started laughing and was like, I'm not a communist, but I do love to spend their money. So I don't know, Ronald Reagan. Maybe there are communists under every bed and behind every door. Maybe.
Have you seen The Americans? Come on. They're next door.
Come on. Okay. When Ron is finally out of the service in December 45, he's there just in time for, again, like his once kind of lightweight chorus girl, snappy sidekick role-playing wife to nab her first Best Actress nomination from the Academy.
Oh, my.
She was nominated in 46 for The Yearling, but it was in 1948 that she finally took an Oscar home. That year, Jane Wyman portrayed a deaf-mute woman who is raped and becomes pregnant in the film Johnny Belinda. This is subject matter that had been censored by the government, and so this movie is the first that was able to explore this type of story.
Right.
So it was a big deal. It was very controversial. And Jane worked her ass off to bring this role to life. She spent 6 months studying sign language at a school for the deaf. She memorized all of her co-stars' lines so that when she was acting, she actually had wax in her ears to like more embody the deaf experience. Yeah.
Oh.
So, and she had 0 speaking lines in the film.
And won an Academy Award?
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. No.
Yeah. Best Actress. When she accepted her Oscar, she held fast to what had gotten her there in the first place. Her speech was simple. I accept this.
Lying about my age?
I'm 11. No, she said, I accept this very gratefully for keeping my mouth shut once. I think I'll do it again. And then she walked off stage.
Oh. Jane Wyman's kind of a badass.
She's kind of a badass. All right, there were also rumors, which Ronnie fully believed, that she had an affair with one of her co-stars, Lou Ayres, on the film. But Ronnie seemed to be really forgiving of it, telling gossip columnist Luella Parsons, right now, Jane needs very much to have a fling, and I intend to let her have it. I do not know quite what to say about
Ronald Reagan!
Don't really know. I feel like there's some context missing from that quote, because this would have been from 6 decades ago or whatever.
Fling it, honey.
Okay, so apparently he just could not conceptualize divorcing. Like, that just wasn't a thing he could do. So he went to extraordinary lengths to leave the door open to reconciliation, but eventually it did not happen. So, I think there's professional jealousy because of Jane's sudden massive success. Ron has been sidelined as an actor. There's grief after the loss of their baby daughter. And then there is this difficult moral situation where, Ronnie is siding with the McCarthyite blacklist and chasing communist sympathizers for the FBI. And I think the marriage just became unsustainable for Jane. They were just in different places. He would later write, and you want to talk about that hero fixation he's got? He would later write, quote, perhaps I should have let someone else save the world and saved my own home. I got nothing to say to you.
Okay.
Ronnie Reagan.
Ronnie Pooh.
Okay.
Shooby-dooby-doo.
I will say this blacklist thing that he was engaged in, it did work out for him later, as we will see in an interesting way. By 1947, Jane had had enough of the marriage. She was in New York, probably on a work trip, and she told a reporter, "We're finished. It's all my fault," which was the first Ronnie heard that his marriage was ending.
Oh, no.
Very hurtful. Very, very hurtful. His friends blamed Jane's increasingly devoted interest in being a star and suggested that she just got bored with Ronnie. Meanwhile, Ronnie told Hedda Hopper, quote, if this thing comes to a divorce, I think I'll name Johnny Belinda as a co-respondent.
Oh, my.
So clearly that Oscar didn't help her family life.
The things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Long story short, they tried to work it out a few times, but in the end, Jane filed for divorce, and on July 16, 1949, the pair were officially done. The settlement, which was uncontested, gave Jane custody of the kids, $500 a month in child support, alimony only in case she became unable to work, and half of the proceeds from selling their home. Jane continued working in film and television into the 60s, at which point she just felt like the roles that were available for women were less compelling than they had been. So in 1962, she semi-retired to focus on painting. She became a respected landscape painter.
Really?
Yeah. She did still work, though, but at a much, like, she would, in the 60s, she did a few things that decade. Yeah.
When it was interesting.
In the 70s, she did a few more things that decade, but still, yeah, like, if it didn't call to her, she just didn't.
Respect, Jane Wyman.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I guess the Dominick Dunne piece that you sent me, like, she lived in an apartment. She did not have servants. Like, she didn't have a staff at her home. Like,
just living her best life, loving herself,
Yep.
being her own Valentine.
Yeah. Okay, so in 1981, not long after her ex-husband was inaugurated as president, she was cast as the scheming matriarch on the nighttime soap opera Falcon Crest.
Yeah, she was.
Which ran for 9 seasons. So actually, she was on TV into the post-presidency of her ex-husband.
Interesting.
Yeah, the producers swore that her being cast had nothing to do with Ronald Reagan.
Not a thing.
Yeah. That
nope.
Obviously, it was genius casting. Let's just be real.
For sure.
Like, not only is she a great actress, but the people are curious, right? Like, you can't... Anyway.
First divorced president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, she married 2 more times to the same man, interestingly.
Nuh-uh.
Bandleader Frederick Carger, but she also divorced him twice. Marilyn Monroe had previously hoped to marry Carger back when he was her vocal coach.
Holy hell.
In the late 40s. Fun fact, Marilyn Monroe bought Frederick Carger a $500 watch as a gift on an installment plan. Like, I guess she didn't have $500 that day. But she finds a watch she loves. She's in love with this guy. She's hoping to marry him. Brings him the watch. Everything's cool. He eventually turns her down romantically, so they don't see each other. Anyway, when this dude walks down the aisle with Jane Wyman in 1952, Marilyn Monroe is still paying off that watch.
No.
Yeah. Tough stuff. Okay.
That is some high-level trash candy, Stacie.
So they divorced in 55, they remarried in 61, and they divorced again in 65.
Unreal.
This was Jane Wyman's last marriage and divorce. She never married again. She said that some women aren't the permanent marriage kind, and she just has no real talent for it, so...
There you go.
Yeah. Got canvases to paint. So Jane Wyman died on September 10th, 2007 at the age of 90.
Wow.
She is buried at Forest Lawn Mortuary and Memorial Park in Cathedral City, California. I include that for our listener who will be in Los Angeles soon.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. After the divorce, Ronnie did the normal flipping out thing. He got an apartment for himself and became a temporary Don Juan of Hollywood. He was running up huge nightclub tabs. He had a different lady every night, etc., etc. Toward the end of 1949, and this is where this blacklist thing really pays off for him, there's a young actress whose name has appeared on the blacklist, but she is not a communist sympathizer. So she approaches him as the head of SAG and is like, hey...
Can you help me out?
My name is Nancy Davis.
My name is Nancy Davis.
And it turns out that for some reason the government thinks I'm a communist. I'm sure you don't know anything about that, but I was wondering if you could help me get my name off that list.
She sounds a lot like Barnaby, our kitten. Is she batting her eyelashes too when she says this? Okay.
Probably. Okay, so yeah, it turns out, well, according to Ronald Reagan, there were 2 Nancy Davises in Hollywood, which makes sense. I'm skeptical that either one of them was a communist, though, at this point. Like, I really just do feel like these people were infected with brainworms back then. So, anyway, they start dating. And apparently it took, Ronnie was pretty scarred from the divorce.
Sure.
He was not eager to rush into another marriage. He was still dating pretty widely for the first little bit of their dating life. And anyway, he did eventually come to the realization that this was a relationship that was working and could work. He was into it. So they were married in 1952, and their first child, Patty, was born 7 months and change later.
Oh.
Ron Reagan was born in 1958. Nancy Reagan never, ever developed warm feelings for Jane Wyman, and the spite was mutual. Jane, who, like, for real, she never trash-talked her ex-husband, or any of her ex-husbands, really. Like, never did. But she is rumored to have kind of in private referred to Nancy Reagan as Nancy Vita. Yeah, and then reporters say that sometimes, like, you could get Ronald Reagan to, when he was president, to sort of start telling funny stories about the Jane Wyman years. But, you know, like, Nancy would walk into the room and he would just on a dime, he would just, like, freeze mid-sentence and change topics. Nancy did not like Jane, and I don't think Jane liked Nancy. Okay. So Reagan's own democratic politics shifted as he began to see communists everywhere.
Okay.
And by the mid-50s, he was an anti-union, anti-communist Republican who favored free markets and limited government.
Okay.
In 61, he recorded an amazing bit of audio for the American Medical Association where he warned that Medicare would lead to a socialist dictatorship and snuff out American freedom.
Well, why didn't we listen to Ronald Reagan?
For real. You know, I know that we have a number of listeners who are, you know, in the age group. How you liking your socialist dictatorship now that you're in your 60s, listeners? Like, I don't understand. Anyway, let's say that Ronnie was a little paranoid and excitable from this point forward.
Wow.
For Goldwater's 64 election, he made a super dark televised late October campaign speech called A Time for Choosing, where he said that only Goldwater would preserve the freedom that liberals were trying to take away. Goldwater lost, but this really cemented Reagan as a political speaker. And the clarity of his, like, us versus all those other Americans ideology is super simple. And so if you're trying to get the simple people to vote for you, it's a pretty good, it's still working today. Let's just say that. Anyway, so Ronnie serves 2 terms as governor of California. And then in 1980, he defeated incumbent President Jimmy Carter to become the 40th president of the United States. So we're not going to even try to dig into the complicated legacy of Ronald Reagan. There will be, I drew from some books. We'll have those in show notes if you want to get up to date on.
Sum it up. He's the Gipper. He likes jelly beans.
I mean, yeah, no, for me, like, one of the formative moments of the world is when his press secretary laughed about Americans dying of AIDS. That was cool. Good times. Complicated legacy. Okay. By all accounts, he and Nancy were deeply in love with each other, even through their later years.
They really were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In 94, he left office in 89 after his 2 terms. In 94, Reagan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, which, like, to be honest, it did track with countless accounts from throughout his presidency of,
for sure,
of stuff that indicated early dementia. He died on June 4th, 2004 at home in Bel Air, California. Nancy would go on to live another 12 years, dying of congestive heart failure at the age of 94 in March of 2016. President Obama issued a proclamation ordering the flag to be flown at half-staff until her burial on March 11th. And then just a little fun tidbit, because apparently young Reagan was, as he made his political conversion, was a bit of a mansplainer.
I find this so hard to believe.
So Jane Wyman once said of her husband and then ex-husband, ask him the time and he'll tell you how to build a watch. Which also tracks with stuff his peers had to say about him at that time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I feel like, so Jane Wyman had 5 divorces in total, and that seems like a good number of trash cans to administer. Like, all of these people had weird relationships with their kids. Like, I don't know. They were Hollywood people and then political
classic
people.
Hollywood
and,
divorce.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
77 trash cans filled with water, drowning people from Dixon, Illinois, and communists too.
filled with
stolen films,
young kids from Dixon, Illinois who were not drowning,
and bifocals.
when Ronald Reagan dragged them out of the lake or whatever.
5 stars is great. That was a hella story. That was amazing. I didn't know about any of that.
No, I didn't either.
That was a great story. Well done.
All right, well, let's take a break and come back with yet more rat packy spider webby awesomeness.
That's so good.
Cool.
Hey friends, Alicia here with some tips on better living. BetterHelp is my bra-free way to connect with my counselor. I love her. It can be your counseling option too.
Wherever you are, BetterHelp can connect you with a professional counselor online. You'll chat via secure video or telephone, and you can chat and text with your therapist. Once you sign up with BetterHelp, you can start communicating with your therapist in under 24 hours on your desktop, mobile web, Android, and iOS apps.
Whatever you're working through, BetterHelp has counselors who can help. If you're experiencing family conflict, stress or anxiety, depression, overcoming trauma, or want to have a healthier relationship, your BetterHelp counselor is there. What if you don't click with your counselor? Just get a new one at no charge.
Maybe taking care of yourself was on your 2020 goal list, and we are very happy to help. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp by visiting our special URL at betterhelp.com/trashy.
Once you're there, fill out the quick questionnaire so BetterHelp can match you with the best counselor. betterhelp.com/trashy for 10% off your first month. Counseling at home, y'all. Bra free. That's about as good as it can get.
So, Alicia, you have the story of an actual goddess to go with the story of my political deity.
A trailblazing goddess.
Oh.
Diahann Carroll.
Ah.
Diva extraordinaire. And sheer elegance. Like, in everything I have watched her in, old, young, interviews, it doesn't matter. She is always elegant. Like, on fleek. I don't even know if that's the right thing to say, but she is, God, turned up. She's amazing. Okay. Amazing. Her accomplishments are so many. She is the first Black actress to have her own television series. This is called Julia on NBC in 1968. She's the first Black actress to replace a white actress on Broadway. She replaces Elizabeth Ashley in Agnes of God. First Black actress to star on a nighttime soap when she starred on Dynasty.
Oh, interesting.
In her role of Dominick Devereaux. She's multiple nominated, award-winning. She's won a Tony. She's won a Golden Globe. She's amazing. Elegant in every motion and word. Married 4 times. The thing that Diahann Carroll is not, she's not terribly lucky in love.
Not easy to pin down romantically.
Not at all. She is going to tell Los Angeles Times' Leonard Feather in her early relationships that she was too young, married to her work, and quite selfish about it. Even in her first autobiography, Diahann, she will confess, "All I ever wanted to do was sing. What happened was more." You ready to talk about it? Such a good story.
Yeah.
Diane Johnson is born July 17th, 1935. She is a Cancer. She's one of our cuddly crab babies. Like, Cancers just want so much love, but they will pinch your face off. It's a tough dichotomy being a Cancer. Diane grows up in New York City, or she will. Here's the thing. When she's like 3 or 4, she and her mom go down to visit mom's people in North Carolina. They have dinner. They put Diane to bed. Diane wakes up.
No mom.
No mom.
Similar, right? Like, yeah. Wow, that's
She proceeds to look for a mom for days. Her mom just didn't say goodbye. And like, her parents have made the call that they need to be child-free for a year. Like, if they have a year without a kid, they can get their shit together. But leaving your child is going to make a lasting impression on Diahann Carroll.
Yeah.
Diane says, yeah, this makes a great story, like brokenhearted baby. Much later in life, like, she'll say it happened. It's over. It's done. I could have lived on that excuse forever. But look at all the good they did. I had a fabulous, incredible life. It is my fault that I'm still walking around with this story in my head. It's been with me for a long time. It's hard to give up. It has worked so well. thought that was so fitting because sometimes we do just hold on to that story.
Right.
It's an interesting point there. Mom and Dad do claim the kid. They go back, live in New York. They're hard workers. Dad is a subway conductor. Mom is a nurse. Mom will eventually devote her time to caring for kids full time. But they really do the best they can for their kid. And Diahann is super talented. So they're living in Harlem. They live at the corner of Amsterdam and Broadway. And like theater's a thing. By 6, Diahann knows that she loves to sing. She loves to act. She's singing in her church in Harlem. She will head to LaGuardia High School of Music and Performing Arts, where she is classmates with Billy D. Williams. Mom and Dad support this dream of hers. Like they've always encouraged her.
That was the Fame High School.
Yeah, Fame. We're gonna make you pay in sweat. I love Fame. Okay. Mom and Dad support it. They've given her piano lessons her whole life. Like, they're into it, but Dad is like, you can't go into showbiz life. Like, not because you're not talented, not because you can't do it, but honey, like, this is a terrible life. It may be exciting, but can you weather this? Is your, constitution enough to weather it?
And this was before you could leave reviews on the internet.
For real. Diane's going to get some modeling gigs. She sends some pictures into Ebony when she's like 14, 15. She gets the gig. It's a big deal. So she's modeling with Ebony magazine at 15. She's beautiful. She's working in the hat department of Macy's. Like, she's an ambitious kid. In high school, she heads to audition for Arthur Godfrey. This is where she's going to change her last name from Johnson to Carroll. She's with a friend whose last name is Oppenheim. So there's this whole, like, you guys are a vaudeville act, Oppenheim. And they're like, no, we're not. Anyway, she gets the call back and she goes back in with Mom. And Arthur Godfrey gets a little fresh with Mom. And Diahann, even as a teenager, is like shutting that shit down. Like, her thing is, you say it once, I'm going to correct you. And now you know who I am and I know who you are. And we're not going to go through this foolishness again. If Diahann is not interested, she's going to shut you down. So, like, totes respect for that part. She's going to prove less skilled at shutting him down when she's interested, though. But Diane's going to go on a pretty fast trajectory. She attends college. She goes to NYU for a little bit. But modeling and singing and the lure of the showbiz life is too great. Here's what happens. She gets on this show called Chance of a Lifetime and wins. Wins $1,000. Wins for the next 4 weeks. It's like a forerunner of You've Got Talent, American Idol. Like, okay, so she's scraped up $3,000 from that. And that gig is going to get her a gig at a nightclub called the Latin Quarter, which will lead to a contract. So goodbye, New York University. But roles are not necessarily easy to come by. So you take the work where you can get it. She's doing some gigs in the Catskills. She's touring small towns, like trying to get her groove on. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like, she'll say, I didn't think I was a trailblazer. I was a Black woman. I took the work that came to me. I couldn't be choosy. So, Kat's skilling it, doing some tiny, small towns. She's going to step up her act a bit when she goes back into New York City. So she comes back. Now she's wearing slinky gowns and singing torch songs. She heads out to Hollywood in 1954. Diana's going to get a supporting role in a film called Carmen Jones. She is the sassy sidekick friend to Dorothy Dandridge, who has the starring role. During the filming of Carmen Jones, she meets Marlon Brando, who was just becoming. He is going, like, in the process of becoming the phenomenon he's going to be. Diahann says he was something new and dangerous and frightening and sensual. He was always about the craft. So Marlon Brando asked Diahann Carroll to dinner. And at the end, like, they're leaving, and he whacks her on the butt. and finds out that she's a proper lady when she whacks him back on the jaw.
Wow.
And says, "I beg your pardon."
Wow.
This is a line that she will continue to assert in Hollywood. The next day, a box of books arrive at her home. They're from Marlon Brando. They're about acting and singing and training and Stanislavski. And Marlon Brando's put in a note. He's like, "Catch the next plane and go to New York and take these with you. Go do it." And she does. She heads back to New York. She is going to get the ingenue role in a play called House of Flowers on Broadway. This is 1956. And here she's going to meet hubby number one, the casting director for said play, Monty Kaye. Monty is a Virgo, and really a Cancer could do worse than a Virgo. But old Monty Kaye is 34. Diahan's 20. Monty Kaye has been a talent scout. He's director for a lot of musical acts and clubs in New York City. He will found a jazz club called Birdland in New York. He'll found one in Chicago as well. He's producing a lot of famous musicians. Monty Kaye is a big deal. And Diahann, young, beautiful, like a lot of good girls, maybe tired of waiting.
Sure, mega talented.
Maybe sees he can help her career. These two lovebirds are going to marry September 1956.
Okay.
Diahn's dad is furious. Do not approve. Do not recommend. He will not attend the wedding.
Wow.
Doesn't go. And this is at their church in Harlem. Nope.
Okay, sorry, you ditched your kid for a year in North Carolina without saying goodbye, and now you're not going to her wedding? Come on, Dad.
Dad's not into it. But like things go well enough. Like Diahann is going to play in Las Vegas. Nat King Cole is going to come to her shows and give her notes like Jerry Lewis did to Sammy Davis Jr. She's going to meet Frank Sinatra too. He's going to be kind to her and help her build her career. Everything's groovy until 1959. Diahann is going to star in a little film called Porgy and Bess.
Really?
With dude named Sidney Poitier.
Really?
And Dorothy Dandridge again. Oh, and nice guy named Sammy Davis Jr. So Diahann Carroll and Sammy have known each other for a long time. They went on one date many moons ago. It was not a love affair. But Diahann says, Sammy became curious about what I wanted to do. He was really helpful to me. He took me to a few screenings. He introduced me to Frank Sinatra. We had a friendship. And he was a man who was very strange with women. Is what she says. He liked her anyway. Sammy Davis Jr. calls her a professional virgin.
Oh, interesting.
And she really liked that reputation. She's like, he partied every night. He was bigger than life. He was funny and smart and curious and loving and self-destructive. But Diahann Carroll and Sammy Davis Jr. will circle around each other in their careers. They're on Broadway at the same time, but in different shows. They're in Vegas together. He's headlining in the Copa Room. She's playing the Persian Room.
Gotcha.
They're also in Porgy and Bess together. Okay, so in Porgy and Bess, Diahann Carroll is going to meet and fall in love and start a very long and torrid love affair with Sidney Poitier.
A very long, right?
Like 10 years.
Okay.
Which is tricky, when Diahn's already married.
Oh.
But so is Sidney.
Even better.
To a woman named Juanita Hardy. Sidney and Juanita have been married about a decade now.
Okay.
Sidney Poitier is an Aquarius Pisces cusp. Just dropping that. And they're going to begin their hot and heavy long-term love affair. Diahann will have a daughter in 1960. It is said to work on the marriage with her husband. Diahann and Sidney are going to star again with another lovey-dovey couple together in 1961 in a film called Paris Blues with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. Okay, so here's where it gets sticky. Diahann, in her next autobiography, claims that Sidney Poitier persuaded her to leave Monty Kaye. Okay?
Okay.
Sidney Poitier says, yep, I'm going to leave Juanita too. Diahann gets her divorce.
She does, yeah. Okay.
Monty's out in 1962.
And so how long until Sydney and Juanita got divorced?
Not until a lot of years after. So Sydney doesn't keep up his end of the bargain.
One of those.
So Diane's like, piss off. You don't want me. I'm nobody's second choice. I'm going to go date this other guy. This is her quoting from her book. Sydney called me at the hotel. You bitch, whore, tramp, he yelled.
Oh, my God.
I know he just left your bed. I won't have you running around with other men. You belong to me.
Not cool?
Not cool. She writes in her book that Poitier later told her he'd left his wife. He buys Carroll a ring. He is like, hey, Diahann, I've just bought this 10-room Riverside Drive apartment. Why don't you decorate it for us? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. We're engaged.
I feel like Olivia Pope went through a lot of this with Vermont.
So much.
And Scandal.
I was only home a few days when he called to say his wife was having second thoughts. Our wedding plans would have to be postponed. When the apartment was ready and I was about to move in with my daughter and me, Sydney told me he didn't want her there. He changed the locks so I couldn't get in. Then he made me write him a check to offset his purchase and decorating costs. I did as I was told, submissive and desperate.
I'm not sure what to say about all of that.
So Sydney is like, let's live together for 6 months and see how this all goes down, which is a great idea unless you have a dependent child. And Diahann Carroll, who was left all those years ago, is not going to leave her kid. Like, sorry, no.
Knows what that trauma feels like, isn't going to inflict that on her kid.
Carroll, this is later, and Poitier does not make a comment on this latest biography. They're friends. She says, Sydney and I are now friends. That's a lovely thing that comes as you age. Forgiveness and perhaps a relaxing of standards. I don't know if I'd be that forgiving. Sidney Poitier is eventually going to divorce Juanita. That won't be until like 1965. And it's not going to be to marry Diahann, even though they're going to carry on their game for a few more years. They dalliance until about 1968. At that point, Diane's had enough. And in this same year, 1968, she's going to become a TV star in this series called Julia. Diahann Carroll is the first black starring character who is not a maid. In this TV series, she plays a widowed nurse, and it's revolutionary. Like, this is groundbreaking television in the day. That role is also going to change her image, right? She's not the sultry singer anymore. Now she's a caretaker. She's a nurse. It runs for 3 years. It runs until 1971, but she asked to be done with it. She's like, I'm exhausted. The daily grind of TV is too much. My image is changing too much when I go on the road to sing. Like, and maybe she's evolving a little too. But let's talk about a little bit more Love Gone Wrong. Okay, so Sydney's out. She's had some success in TV, groundbreaking role. Wins a Golden Globe. It's nominated for Emmys. It's great. But she's out with TV, and it might be time to fall in love again. So Diahann is going to date and get engaged to this dude named David Frost in November 1972. He's a Brit. That's a turbulent relationship, too. By February the following year, that engagement is done. But love is never going to keep a cuddly crab down. A week later, Diahann is going to marry husband number 2, Freddie Glusman.
Did you say a week?
A week. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Diahann was seeing Freddie when she was also seeing David Frost, so it's all cool. This marriage to Freddie Glusman is super fast. They're divorced a few months later.
Is this the David Frost who interviewed Richard Nixon?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry. I
might want to...
Famous journalist David Frost.
Yeah, the David Frost who interviewed Richard Nixon after his... Yeah, okay. That David Frost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a catch.
Well, she dumped him.
Sure.
To marry Fred Glusman. And that's done in a few months.
Fascinating.
Says it was a silly marriage and a silly divorce. So what is Diahann going to do? We learned it in the very beginning of the story. My career is too important to me. She gets back to work. So the great way to avoid the train wreck that last marriage was, Diahann is going to star in this movie called Claudine with James Earl Jones. It's about the life of a woman in Harlem struggling to raise 6 kids. Okay. She'll be nominated for an Academy Award for this one. So Claudine comes out in 1974 with her Academy Award nod. Diahann is being interviewed by Jet Magazine. And the managing editor of Jet Magazine at the time is this young kid. He's 24. His name is Robert DeLeon. He arranges, Diahann's 39. Robert assigns himself to the story so he can meet Diahann Carroll and, well, love, or something like it. 3 months after they meet, they get married. Okay, so they marry 1975.
Jeez.
And this is a little tricky because she's like, I'll retire and move to Chicago to be with you so you can do your job. And he's like, I'm going to quit my job so I can come to California and just support you doing your job. Sadly.
Let's neither of us work.
Kind of. Sadly, 2 years later, Robert is going to die at the age of 26 in a really bad car accident.
Oh my God.
There is definite substance misuse in this one. There are also some rumors skirting around that this actually might have been intentional as well. So, I mean, it's a pretty tragic story. What does Diahann do? She's going to go back to work. 1982, she goes back to Broadway. She will replace Elizabeth Ashley in Agnes of God. The interesting thing about this, it's like black woman coming into like white character. They don't change one line of the script.
Good.
But her character, Dr. Livingston, never leaves the stage. It is a grueling role. She's on stage she doesn't get to go in the wings and pee. But the thing that Dr. Livingston also does is smoke the entire time that she's acting on stage. And Diahann is not a smoker. So after that 6-7 month run on Broadway, Diahann is done. She's like, I am exhausted. I'm sick. I'm going to stay home and recoup for a little while, which she does, and ends up watching a lot of television, including nighttime television.
Really?
And she gets hooked on this nighttime soap opera called Dynasty.
Sure. No, the 80s, there was a flood of them. Every network had one, and maybe 2, because there were Knots Landing, Falcon Crest Dynasty, and Dallas.
Yeah, all over. Okay.
Yeah.
Diahann says that Dynasty was ridiculous and entertaining, and it's a hoot, and we all needed a hoot in the Reagan administration. So she goes to California for the Golden Globes, and she finds out that Aaron Spelling, who is producing Dynasty, is giving an after party for the Golden Globes, and Diahann Carroll totally crashes it and makes herself into the first black actress starring in a nighttime soap in Dynasty with her role of Dominick Devereaux. Totally talks Aaron Spelling. She's like, you've broken every other barrier. Why aren't you doing this?
Right.
And he's like, that's a really good question. I don't know why we're not doing that. And what's funny, he had a hard time writing. He's like, I don't know how to write for a black woman character. And Diahann Carroll says, you write me like I'm a white man.
Oh, interesting.
That's how you write me. Like, so if you go and listen to her script, that is Aaron Spelling in his brain. Like, you don't need to write for me don't make yourself crazy over it. You write for me like you would write for powerful white man. That's my character.
That's really smart. All right.
Okay, so 1984. She begins, remember band leader back in the day, Vic Damone. They tie the knot in Atlantic City in 1985. This is marriage number 4. They tour together. A very happy Diahann Carroll in a Los Angeles Times interview says, we're having a wonderful time off stage and on. Come to think of it, this is probably the only time I should have gotten married. Which maybe by 1990 she's rethinking. Because it's going downhill. There's some rumors of some physical abuse, emotional, It's not good. By April 1991, they filed for formal separation. By April the following year, 1992, they've reunited. So it's on and off and on and off. By 1996, the fourth and final marriage to Vic Damone, done. Diahann Carroll is diagnosed with breast cancer in 1997. She does receive treatment. She survives a very aggressive cancer and will become an advocate for early detection and prevention. The cancer many years later will return, and at the age of 84, Diahann Carroll will pass into the heavenly world in October of 2019.
Wow. Oh, I don't think I realized that she just passed in the last few months, really.
So, on the trashydivorces.com site, you guys, I have put some classic footage. Diahann Carroll with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin singing Witchcraft. Diahann Carroll and Sammy Davis Jr. on stage together. Some amazing stuff. But there's also a masterclass that Oprah Winfrey did with Diahann Carroll. And this is one of the most poignant things I found in my research. About her divorces, Diahann Carroll says, "Given the men I've been involved with a very bad reputation, I'm not saying I said anything that wasn't true. They did act that way, but I selected poorly. I wasn't good at determining, is this a friendship or is this marriage? I wanted to be married. So when the opportunity was there, I did it. I didn't know how to live alone. It was time for me to stop and answer these questions for myself." So after the marriage with Vic Damone falls apart, Diahann goes back to LA and she learns how to live alone. She said, "I had to learn about me, not the role I was playing. It is difficult because I am difficult. I'm not easy to live with. There are 3 or 4 choices that you can make that will give you a terrible day or a wonderful day. But when you're alone, you have no one else to blame but you for making those decisions." Like, she didn't have the ability to lash out for her unhappiness anymore at anybody else because she's really learning how to live by herself.
Focusing on herself.
Nobody can make you extremely happy but you, she says. I was an old lady before I understood that. Yeah. So with that little bit of wisdom, I have a hard time with any trash cans. I think Sidney Poitier definitely gets a few.
That would, yeah. I mean, come on. They were both married. Like, yeah, I'm thinking there's some trash cans for there.
But for Diahann, I mean, come on. The value of knowing yourself at whatever age in life you get there is the good stuff. No one is ever going to make you happy in a relationship until you figure out how to make yourself happy. 3 or 4 decisions. 3 or 4 choices can give you a terrible day or a fantastic day. That was so poignant to me. Like, it is a remarkable feeling to be your own Valentine every day. So let's all do that. When you love yourself, every day is Valentine's Day.
That's really nice.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's the work is worth it. Make yourself your own funny Valentine. Make yourself your most favorite Valentine. I mean, I adore you. I love you more than the world, but I really am my own favorite Valentine.
I know that to be true.
But you do the work on yourself. Like, you stay single. You do the work. You get to really love you. And once you love you, boom. Then relationships become a very different thing.
Yeah.
And a little bit easier to navigate, I think.
No, I think so. I mean, choosing versus needing it's a really different thing.
So the work is worth it.
Yep.
So on that note, that's all I got. Those are the trashy divorces of Diahann Carroll, trailblazing goddess diva of the world.
So I vote that she and Sidney Poitier get some 60s era trash cans back in the day, and then we can just leave her with some halos there at the end.
Perfect. Mix of both worlds. Yep. I love it.
Perfect.
Hey, friends. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
For sure.
Yet again, we love y'all so much. You are truly the best listeners in the world of podcasting. Thank you for being awesome. Hey, until we're back with you next week with more trash candy, or we see you on Patreon during this week.
We will be rabbit holing all week long.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a verb now.
Until then, keep
rabbit
it trashy.
Hole. Oh, yeah, keep it trashy.
So trashy.
Rabbit hole sounds kind of trashy now that I keep saying it.
Dynasty style trashy. Not Landing Falcon Crest style trashy.
Oh,
you
trashy.
Just whack Marlon Brando across the jaw and say, I beg your pardon, trashy. That's how trashy I want y'all to keep it this week. Okay, we gotta go.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, y'all. Thanks so much for listening. Big cheers. Trash Pandas, thanks for listening. Trashy Divorces is written and produced by us, Stacie and Alicia, for Hemlock Creatives.
You can contact us at trashydivorces@gmail.com. Our art is by Sydney V. Smith, Sydney V. Smith at carbonmade.com.
And our music is used with permission of Ratsy. You can find her at Ratsy Store on Instagram.
Big thanks to our Season 5 associate producer, Melanie Z.
Check out episode sources, photos, soundtracks, merch store, and more at trashydivorces.com.
Need more trash candy?
Our Patreon community includes some of the bestest humans around, as well as a bunch of bonus content every week.
Join the fun at patreon.com/trashydivorces.
Last but not least, come play with us on social.
We are at Trashy Divorces at Instagram, which Alicia mostly runs.
Twitter, which Stacie mostly runs.
And on Facebook, which we split.
We also have a Trashy Divorces discussion group on Facebook if you want to chat with other Trashy Divorces listeners.
Thanks again for listening.
Keep it trashy, y'all.